My name is Carrie Schilling, coming to you from Kettering Health Network's Community Outreach Department. I also lead our integrated medicine program with the Kettering Cancer Services, Cancer Services line with the integrated medicine program. Talking with you today, part 3 of the Stress Detox series. I hope that you were able to join us for part 1 and 2, and we'll just jump right into part 3. We're all familiar with that fight or flight response, the cortisol stress hormone that causes us to enter into this fight or flight status. Fight or flight is a great natural response we have if we're encountering that bear in the woods, but we do not often in our daily lives in 2020 encounter the bear in the woods. What we more often than not is encounter that stressor than the bear is just kind of sitting beside us during the day. The bear may be the person that we're encountering at work, or the difficult relationship we have. It may be our finances. It may be the lack of ability to do the things that we normally do. That bear, that stress for us may be a number of different things. However, our bodies are designed to approach that fight or flight response with an imminent threat. And then the threat passes and we can rest again. We can allow our body to go back into its natural homeostatic state. But when our stresses are just lingering throughout the day and we have that little trickle of cortisol all throughout the day, this is what causes many of the diagnoses that bring us to see our primary care physicians. We know of the blood pressure issues and the cholesterol issues and the gastric issues, the irritable bowel syndrome, and many of the gastric problems that lead to folks taking the Nexiums and the Prilosec and the Protonics. When we slow down the gastric juices due to this stress response, anything that's not required for that fight or flight gets slowed down. That includes higher brain functioning. So our thought process, we're in a more of a reptilian. We'll react very quickly. Sometimes reacting very quickly is not in our best benefit when we're stressed. Our reactions are much quicker, but our ability to problem solve and really function in that higher brain is limited. So the number of physiological responses, thought process responses that come from this fight or flight. So we want to find ways through the course of our day to interject healthier thought process, interject healthier behaviors to bring us back into rest and digest for more moments of our day. We're not going to be able to completely reduce the stress out of our day, but if we can stay in the here and now more frequently through the course of the day and not be in those stressful thoughts of before and after, the past and the future, our body reacts the same to an imaginary threat as it does a real threat. So the things we do through the course of our day to bring ourselves into the current moment and not allow our minds to ruminate and wander into stressful thoughts, and really staying in the current moment brings us more moments into this rest and digest, brings us more moments of homeostasis and of breathing more easily, and our digestive systems working healthier, and our blood flowing, and our chemistry more regulated. And if you want to know more about those things, those were in a previous lecture. So I engage you now. How do you deal with the stresses in your life? None of us are going to be able to get rid of stress in life. We're always going to have stress. Those stresses are going to change. But how do you deal with the stress in your life? What healthy practices do you have? What unhealthy practices do you have? There are a number of ways that people deal with stress: movement, yoga, tai chi, qigong practices, prayer, positive affirmations, thoughtfulness, meditations. There are many ways that people deal with the stresses, and I'm going to talk about just a few today. One that's gained a lot of popularity right now is aromatherapy. Aromatherapy is the use of essential oils from plants as therapy to improve physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Aromatherapy may work by sending the chemical messages to the part of the brain that affects mood and emotions. the limbic system. So the aroma, we smell that aroma, whatever it is, and it triggers the olfactory nerve, which is the smell nerve, the olfactory nerve, which triggers that olfactory bulb in the brain, and that triggers the limbic system. The limbic system is where we keep and regulate our emotions, and it has become so popular that now there are some real research dollars being put behind looking at the emotional center of the brain, that limbic system, in research. So what we're finding is that we can not only demonstrate that essential oils can enhance the immune system and reduce our stress and anxiety, and we can look at that by looking at amylase and some other chemicals in the body. But now with the functional MRI, when we put human beings in that machine, we can look at the influence of these different odors and the influence it has on the limbic system and on the emotional pathways in the brain. We can not only predict, but we can actually see what areas of the brain are being stimulated. So some of the oils that we look at working within the hospital system, and there are a lot of them out there, we look at peppermint specifically for any nausea, upset stomach. We don't use ginger for the hospital, but ginger is very good with a gastric situation. But again, peppermint with nausea, vomiting, that's being looked at. I know we use in the cancer centers. I know we're looking at it post-surgically, not just us in the Kettering Health Network. I know that the VA system uses peppermint pods for all post-surgical patients. So there's a lot of attention and focus on peppermint and its use in the hospital systems where we see nausea and vomiting more frequently. But lavender, the use of lavender for anxiety and stress, you'll find lots of lotions and creams and substances that body care products that have lavender in them today. Citruses, lemons, and oranges and grapefruits are great for not only stress, but for just awakening the brain. Like when you need to get in that afternoon pick-me-up, the citruses can really be elevating and help the brain kind of stimulate a little bit and get into better focus. Look at the quality of the oils that you may be interested in using. I know that we in the cancer services use Amarita oils. I can attest for their quality. There are other very good oils out there, but I would encourage you to look at the quality of what you're purchasing. Sometimes it's just to smell good, and that has its benefit. Candles, and there's some of these like wax things that you can put on your desk or different diffusers. There's a benefit to all of those things that bring us a sense of comfort. Now, the use of essential oils is a little bit different. As I mentioned in the definition, those essential oils are extracted in very specific ways from plants, from flowers, herbs, and trees. Pure essential oil is a little bit different than a good smelly candle. There are claims of better effect. Aromatherapy, like so many other things, is not really an FDA approved, so you really want to look at what you're using. Most of the things, we just smell them. There are a few that it's okay to use topically, but always read your instructions because you want to add them to an oil or something that's going to dilute them before you put them on your skin. Like, for example, the peppermint oil, we would never want to get that directly onto our skin because it can burn. Lemon oils and the citrus oils, we don't put directly onto the skin and then go into the sun because they'll enhance burn. The sun, for some reason, the sun will it'll cause more of an easier sunburn if it's directly onto the skin. So you want to know about the oil that you're using. And of course, we don't encourage the ingestion of any of the oils, again, because they are not FDA approved for such things. But there is growing research about the benefit of aromatherapy and its use for nausea and vomiting, as I had mentioned, but also its use for stress, anxiety, showing great benefit with immune boosting, showing benefit with obviously sleep and insomnia issues, getting to sleep and staying to sleep, quality of sleep, those kind of things. I think that's about all I want to say about aromatherapy at this time. There's a lot of information out there. Just make sure that you're looking at a reliable source of the information. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is journaling. Just write it down and let it go. That sounds so simple, doesn't it? It's not that simple. If any of you have ever tried journaling, it is a discipline in the beginning. I get excited about journaling, and just on a personal note, most of my background as a nurse has been in psychiatric nursing. And I can tell you, I can't show you any research right now, but I can tell you, folks who journal get so much more out of their therapy, get so much more out of their treatment. When we can really make journaling a part of what we're doing, there is such benefit. And it is so hard to make yourself do it. So this is really one of those things that I know when I start to talk about journaling, it's really easy to tone it out. But I encourage you right now, really pay attention for the next few minutes, because as difficult as it is to get into the habit of journaling, it is so beneficial. There's a lot of scientific evidence that supports journaling, and it provides really unexpected benefits. The act of writing accesses our left brain, right, which is our analytical and rational brain. So while our left brain is occupied writing, analytically, rationally writing, it frees up our right brain to be more creative. So that intuitive, more feeling brain can start to kick in. And in sum total, when we put those two things together, it can really start to alleviate some mental blocks, allow us to use our brain power to see things a little differently, to see ourselves differently, to see the world differently, to see the people in our life differently. It really engages our brain in a different way. Just that simple act of adding writing to thinking about something. There's significant evidence in that in the research. So what does journaling look like? What are some of those benefits? First off, I would say, just start writing. Folks, we have a tendency to want to like, oh, you have to get a certain book and a certain pen, and you have to have a desk where you go do it, and it has to be at the same time of day, and we make it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Just pick up a pen and start writing. Yes, you want to probably put that someplace or tear it up and throw it away when you're done. I understand we want to protect those private thoughts. There's benefit to just getting it out right here and right now. There's benefit to having that scheduled place and time in the journal you write it in, and it's locked away, and those are your private thoughts. You don't need to ever share them with anyone. But sometimes it's just a matter of sit down and write it. Even if you just tear it up and throw it away when you're done, you've engaged your brain differently, and you'll start to think about that topic differently. So this is just a Nike thing. Just do it. Don't overthink it. Clarifying our thoughts and our feelings. You ever have those moments where you just feel all jumbled up inside? We're just so unsure, there's no clarity, I don't know what the next step should be. Our feelings and our emotions are just tied up. And that act of just jotting it down, just write it down, will help us start to tease that out, help us start to put all of that jumbled up emotion into some sort of format that we can then start to make better decisions. And this is important when you're jotting those thoughts and feelings down. We're jotting down whatever is that's coming to your mind. Don't worry about formulating sentences. Don't worry about punctuation. Don't edit anything. Just steady stream write, and recognizing nobody's ever going to look at it unless you want them to. This is just an opportunity for you to spew it all out on the paper. Journaling will also help you get to know yourself better. The more you get into a writing routine, the more you will start to recognize what things make you happy, what things make you feel secure and confident, what things make you feel a little uncomfortable. We don't always take the time to identify what's positive in our life and what's toxic in our life. And that act of writing down and engaging both sides of the brain can help bring some clarity, help us look at this situation from a different angle, and we start to see some patterns arise. Journaling helps reduce our stress. Writing about our anger, our sadness, painful emotions, it gives some release. It's a valve, a release valve to decrease some of the intensity of those feelings. By doing this, we'll feel calmer, be better able to stay in the present and be less kind of overwhelmed by those difficult thoughts and those stresses. It's thought that this may be where the health benefit comes from. Is this taking as kind of a release valve for some of that steam of the stress that we're just kind of bottling up inside? Again, back to reducing the cortisol, getting less of our time in fight or flight, less of that cascade of the physical responses to stress, and bringing us more into the rest and digest. Problem solving more effectively. Again, typically we use that left brain, the more analytical perspective, to problem solve. But sometimes the answer can be found by engaging that right brain, the creativity, the intuition. Writing kind of unlocks that creativity. Putting that together then with our more analytical can get us more options to problem solve difficult situations. And then resolving disagreements with others. Writing about misunderstandings rather than just stewing over them will help you understand another person's point of view possibly, or how the situation may have affected or influenced that interaction or the other person's actions. It just helps us kind of take one step back from the personalizing it, so that we can then kind of put that whole picture in perspective before we engage with that person who has perhaps hurt us or caused us some negative emotions. So these are the benefits of journaling. I feel like, again, I have to say that the thing is just do it. Just start it. Don't judge it. Don't critique it. Don't edit it. Don't beat yourself up over anything. Just spew it all out onto the paper. Release it onto the paper. And what you're doing is engaging both part of the brain, so you're benefiting that whole process by engaging the analytical as well as the creativity. So I can't stress enough how important journaling is in helping bring us to a state of wellness when it comes to our stress and our anxiety. The next thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is gratitude. We can look at gratitude as an expression of gratefulness. I am grateful for. Or we can look at gratitude as an emotion, the emotion of gratefulness. I feel grateful when. Gratitude is associated with a number of benefits. Experiencing more positive emotions. There's just so much research on gratitude. A simple Google search for gratitude and you'll find wonderful stories. A simple YouTube search on gratitude, you'll find wonderful stories of people telling their experiences with gratitude and how it's affected their lives. Experiencing more positive emotions. Improved health. And again, that might be the stress thing, as we can alleviate some of that stress, bring ourselves more into the current moment, less into the fight or flight and more into that rest and digest. We have all of those health benefits that I've talked about before with giving our body more homeostasis and less in that cortisol mode. More enjoyment in life experiences. Just able to be more present with the joyous events and being able to see the joyous events through what sometimes seems like more negative, seeing the trees for the forest, right? Being able to get in and pick out the things in life that are worthy of our joy, of our happiness. And gratitude gives us that opportunity to see through everything else that we may be facing in our day-to-day life and pick out the good things. Because there are good things, and finding them sometimes is a little more challenging, but the more we put our attentions and our focus on gratitude, the easier we can pick those things out. Stronger relationships. There are some significant studies about folks that show gratitude and how they relate more easily to each other, and they're able to see the positives, to hold on to those positives and revisit those positives that you see in another person stronger later into the later years of a relationship. The more we're able to show gratitude toward the people we love in our lives, the more likely we are to first see their positive attributes. And then stronger coping when faced with hardships. That resiliency Folks that have just a nature of gratitude tend to be those people who bounce back more quickly from the stresses in life, from the crises that can arrive in life. People who are just more naturally prone toward gratitude tend to be much more resilient people. So gratitude is a practice of emotion and a thought, but we can look at where it happens in the brain. There are two areas of the brain that making a conscious practice of gratitude affect. The hypothalamus in this area regulates stress. So again, that might be where the physiological benefits come from. The ventral tegmental area is the area that influences the brain's reward system. So it's that production of pleasure feelings, the feel-good area of the brain. So there's something about intentionally focusing our thoughts on gratitude that stimulates the feel-good area of the brain, which, how can that be a bad thing, right? Always looking for those positives through everything that we do in the day. So how do we actually cultivate that gratitude? Again, back to journaling, write it down. There's thought that, when you first wake up in the morning, write down 4 things that you're grateful for in your life today. Some folks prefer to do that at bedtime. Some folks prefer to just write down a one-liner, and there's some research on that with the journaling. Some of the research looked at folks that write every day, once a day, whether that's morning or nighttime. They jot down 4 things that they're grateful for, just one-liners. There's another set of research that looks at once a week. Once a week, sit down and write about 4 things you're grateful for, but really write about them, really journal about it, put thought into it. You're grateful for this thing, and why are you grateful for this thing? How does that benefit you or your loved ones or your situation? So whether you're writing every day, just jotting it down, or once a week in a more meaningful, thoughtful, deeper way. Actually, there's some indication that the folks that do it once a week in a deeper, more meaningful journaling have a little bit more benefit than those that just jot something every day. But what I would say is, when it comes to journaling, if you're doing it, just do it. Whether it's once a day or once a week, whether it's deep or it's jotting it down, in any way you do that you're starting to get yourself in the habit of doing it, everything's relative. It's better than not doing it at all. So in whatever way that is more realistic in your life to get you started. We can also cultivate gratitude by just expressions. For some folks, there's, again, that journaling, writing it down, writing thank you notes, writing thank you cards. And the benefit probably is there whether you ever send the thank you card or not. One of the practices we use in journaling is perhaps we may journal or write a letter to someone who's no longer in our life. There is benefit to writing that letter, writing that thank you, writing those thoughts, whether you ever send it or not. So write those thank you notes. And if it's in your life, then send them. And if it's not, then you still gain benefit just from writing the thank you notes. And oftentimes that's just saying thank you through the course of the day. I know one gentleman who makes sure that at least 5 times a day he says thank you to someone, whether that's for someone opening the door or cleaning the floors, whatever it is. Through the course of his day, he says thank you to at least 5 people. And I know that this engaging that part of our brain as well, that verbally speaking it out, engages different areas of our brain as well. And so there's got to be benefit to that. And then gratitude meditations. For those of you that may have watched our earlier meditation session, session 1 of this 3-part series, I talk a little more about meditation and mindfulness. And I would encourage you to give some thought to this practice as well. And that's simply sitting quietly with the thought of someone or something that's positive in your day. And you can start that with just simply asking yourself a few questions. Find a comfortable place to sit. Find that place where your feet are on the floor and you're sitting comfortably in a chair. Take just a moment to feel yourself breathe. Feel your shoulders relax. And ask yourself the question, literally ask yourself the question, who am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for today? What material thing are you grateful for today? This comfortable chair you're seated in, or warm blanket you're curled up in. Simply asking yourself those 3 questions and taking the moment to calmly contemplate in your mind the answers to those questions before you then get up and go about your day. There are much more elaborate gratitude meditations, and there's definitely benefit to those. But starting a meditation practice, much like starting a journaling practice, we kind of tiptoe into it sometimes. And just taking those few minutes of your day to ask yourself the questions, who am I grateful for? What am I grateful for? What material things in my life or comfort things in my life am I grateful for? There's the whole concept of confirmation bias, right? As we go into a situation and we're expecting to see something, we're more likely to see that than we are other things. Unrelated, but years ago there was a study where they looked at a bunch of college kids, and they were studying something completely different, but they had these college kids spend hours a day playing Tetris. If you remember that game, it's little shapes float down and you have to get them in the right place to fit in. It's a puzzle game. These college kids spent hours every day playing Tetris. And what they found, interestingly, this is not what they were studying, but what they found was the kids all said that after a day of playing that, they found that everywhere they went, they saw Tetris shapes. They walking through the grocery store, driving along the street, everywhere they went, they saw everything in Tetris shapes. Their mind was looking for those shapes. I think it applies to gratitude. The more we train our brain to be looking for things to be thankful for, the more we see those things that we can be thankful for. Focusing our awareness and our attention where we choose to focus our awareness and attention is a big piece of meditation, of mindfulness. Focusing our attention, our awareness on positive things that uplift us, bring us joy, bring us happiness, bring us solitude and serenity, then we'll start to automatically see those things in the world around us and can benefit our mental, physical, spiritual well-being and bring us to a healthier state of being. Thank you very much for joining us today for part 3 of our series.